But what she didn't realize was this. Her daughter had already planned everything. She had built her life slowly, carefully, one sacrifice at a time. Not the kind of life people admire from the outside, but the kind that only makes sense when you've survived enough pain to understand its value. A small home, worn furniture, quiet rooms filled with years of struggle no one ever saw. And to her, this wasn't just a house. It was proof she survived everything life tried to take from her. Her husband had passed years ago, and after that, life didn't get easier. It demanded more. Bills, responsibilities, and nights filled with silence. But she handled it. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly, every single day. Her daughter grew up in that same house. Got married from that same house. And slowly, built her own life. At first, everything stayed normal. Visits were normal. Calls were normal. Even the way her daughter looked at the house felt normal. At first. But then, something changed. It started with small comments. "Mom, this house feels so big now. It would make more sense if we all stayed together." She would just smile and change the topic. Not because she agreed, but because she always avoided conflict. Always chose peace. But repetition changes things. Those comments didn't stop. They came again. And again. Same words. Same tone. Like an idea being slowly planted. One evening while cleaning alone, she paused. The silence felt heavier than usual. And for the first time, she noticed something she ignored before. The way her daughter looked at the house was no longer normal. It wasn't how you look at a place you visit. It was how you look at something you believe is already yours. And that thought stayed longer than it should have. But what she didn't realize was this. The next time her daughter walked through that door, she wouldn't come as a visitor. She would come with a decision already made. And a request that would change everything. It was supposed to be a normal visit. A peaceful family day. Laughter, food, noise, life. For a few hours, the house felt full again. And she loved that feeling. But after dinner, everything shifted. The children went upstairs. The adults stayed in the living room. And then her daughter leaned forward. "Mom, we need to talk." The tone changed. Not loud. Not angry. But serious. The mother smiled slightly. "Of course, what is it?" Pause. Then it came. "We've been thinking, this house is too big for you alone. And it would make sense if we moved in." The words were simple. But they didn't feel simple. They felt rehearsed. Carefully chosen. Her daughter continued quickly. "The kids need space. You wouldn't even be alone anymore." And there it was. Framed as love. Framed as care. But underneath it, something else. Control disguised as family concern. The mother stayed silent. Trying to understand the shift. Because this didn't feel like a request anymore. It felt like a plan. Already in motion. Already decided. And she was only being informed. Not asked. Told. And that was the difference. That was what changed everything. But then her daughter said something that made the entire room fall silent. Because it wasn't just a suggestion anymore. It was something that had already been planned. The silence in the room felt heavier now. The mother finally spoke. "So you've already decided?" Her daughter hesitated. But only for a moment. "Yes, we've thought about it." Then came the sentence that changed everything. "The kids already picked their rooms." Silence. That single line didn't belong in a request. It belonged in a plan. Not future planning. Already settled planning. The mother stared at her. "The kids, what?" Her daughter smiled casually. "Emma wants the back room. Noah wants the upstairs one." As if it was already confirmed. As if moving in was not a possibility, but an expectation. And suddenly, the mother understood something deeper. People don't pick rooms in a house they might live in. They pick rooms in a house they believe they already own. And that realization changed everything. This wasn't a conversation. It was preparation. And in that moment, she realized something even worse. This idea hadn't started today, or even recently. It had been growing in silence for a long time. That night, the house felt different, not physically, but emotionally heavy. She sat alone, replaying every word. This is better for everyone. That sentence stayed in her mind. At first, she tried to ignore it, but the truth slowly became clear. This wasn't about help. This was about control. Quiet control, wrapped in family language. The next morning, she acted normal. Small. But inside, something had already shifted. Later that day, she made a decision. She picked up her phone and called a real estate agent. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. I want to sell my house. Pause. Are you sure? She looked around the home she built her entire life and said, yes, I'm sure. No drama, no discussion, just a decision, made in silence. But what she didn't know was that one phone call had already started something that would soon change everything. It happened faster than expected. Offers came in, paperwork moved, decisions finalized, and through it all, she said nothing. At home, life continued normally. Her daughter still talked about moving plans, still assumed everything was in progress. But she had no idea. It was already over. One evening, her daughter said excitedly, "We should start planning properly now." The mother looked at her, then said calmly, "We'll see." 2 words, simple, but final. Days later, the papers were signed. The house was sold, permanently. That evening, she told her daughter, "What do you mean, sold?" Silence. Confusion. But the mother stayed calm. "I sold the house." And in that moment, everything broke. Because she wasn't asking anymore. She was informing. But the real shock wasn't the sale. It was what her daughter discovered after it. At first, she didn't believe it. This is a joke, right? But it wasn't. Slowly, reality settled in. The plans collapsed. Assumptions broke. And what remained was silence. Now every visit felt different. Heavier. Tense. Because something unspoken had changed. Trust. Not broken, but shaken. Meanwhile, the mother packed quietly. No anger. No drama. Just peace. And with every box she closed, she felt lighter. Not because she was leaving her family, but because she was finally leaving the pressure of always saying yes. When she left the house, there was no final scene. No argument. Just a quiet goodbye. But something had changed forever. And months later, a message arrived that reopened everything. Months passed. Distance grew. Silence remained. Until one day, her phone rang. Her daughter. She answered. Pause. Then her daughter said softly, "Mom, I've been thinking." Another pause. "I didn't realize how it must have felt, the way I spoke." Silence. Then, "I thought I was doing what made sense, but I forgot it was your life too." The mother listened, then finally said, "I didn't leave because I stopped caring. I left because I needed to remember I still had a say in my life." Silence again. But this time, different. Calmer. Not pain. Understanding. And for the first time, there was no argument left. Only reflection. Because sometimes, the hardest decision in life isn't walking away from people. It's choosing yourself, without guilt,